Good morning. It is 3:38 a.m. on July 31st, and the war is over. The Cape Fear Hate Watch has ended as of maybe 15 minutes ago. I'm going to give some instant thoughts on the finale and then some general thoughts about the show, unscripted, spoilers, and I'm going to lead off and say I did not like this show, sort of as a whole. The finale was sort of a breath of fresh air for the past month of this show's release, but I don't think they went far enough with it. I don't think enough people died, frankly. I think that the Bowden showing mercy at the end is kind of a laugh for me. Kind of made me laugh when Natalie was sort of yelling at him in the pouring rain to kill him, and Anna is sort of screaming to Tom through his daze, or through his, I guess, zoning out of the situation, kind of letting Max drown. Um, let's let him rot in a cage or whatever, die in a cage. You know, I don't know exactly where this show takes place. I'm sure it's like North Carolina or something, or Georgia, probably Georgia. Um, I wasn't paying enough attention. There are certainly stand your ground laws. They certainly could have just killed him. And now that the whole county kind of knows what's going on, um, they totally could have gotten away with it too. And it's not only that, you don't even have to worry about, like, you know, you were totally justified. You didn't just kill a guy for no reason. It might mess you up a little bit, but now as the ending, as the episode ending shows, both Tom and Anna are still looking over their shoulders, worried that Max could get out again, right? They already did this. They were already scared of Max. They already tried to put him away for a long time, right? They still acted plenty sort of without the decorum that you expect lawyers to act with, right? There's still a non-zero chance that Max could get not acquitted, but maybe pardoned, or maybe an appeal goes through, he finds another attorney, right? There are plenty of decent attorneys out there who will take a name like Max Cady. The entire state of Georgia, which is where I just decided this show takes place. Editing Nick here, the show does take place in North Carolina. My bad. I had it right the first time. I guess I overthought it. I think Amy Adams' accent was just too southern for me to think it could be North Carolina. Let's get back to it. Isn't going to avoid Max Cady just because he's guilty, right? He's, you know, the even public defenders are still incredibly intelligent, right? They just don't have the time necessarily to dedicate to one client as a um, typical, not pro bono attorney does. I also feel it's necessary for me to complain about the last maybe 90 seconds of this entire series. My biggest complaint about sort of the dog days of this show, like episodes 5 through 8, is that there's a lot of focus on whether or not Natalie, especially, is Max Cady's daughter. And I think it's sort of hinted that she isn't because of the whole Luke thing, which I can talk about after this. But, you know, a significant portion of this show is dedicated to, you know, sort of cultivating that mystery, sowing doubt and plenty of misdirection over whether or not Natalie, or Zach for that matter, um, is Max's uh, child. So I guess riddle me this, why is one of the final shots of the show Natalie looking at a DNA test? A sealed envelope with, I guess you could assume, her father, her biological father, on the inside. Anna calls, the burgers are done, and she kind of chucks the DNA test on the bed and goes to eat with her family, Tom, Anna, and Zach. I get what it represents, but to me, they I think this inclusion took an all right finale, which was entertaining and I think for the most part satisfactory, and completely spit in the face of it. They could have just not included the thing, you know. I get why, for better or for worse, Tom, Anna, and Zach are Natalie's family. It doesn't really matter to her anymore if Max is her father. But again, they spent so much time on this sort of dynamic. People literally died to answer, because Natalie was curious about this question. She acted out and she went to Cape Fear with Max, resulting in the death of Anna's or Noah's employee, the ex-convict who I can't remember his name, who was doing all the digging on Crystal. To me, I think it would have been a better choice to just not include the DNA test at all. Do I really care who, whose father Natalie is? No, it doesn't really matter to me. I just think after all the time that we spent dedicated to it, it just doesn't really. It's just a bit of a slap in the face to be like, oh yeah, here's the answer to this thing that we spent probably an hour of your life teasing you with, um, and we're not going to touch on it anymore. Not a great decision in my opinion. One thing I can sort of praise the show for is the inclusion of Luke in the last 2 or 3 episodes. He comes about when Natalie and Max go down to Cape Fear. Max goes to see his father and look for Crystal. He's sort of revealed as this sort of creep, right? One of the first lines he has is asking if he can kiss Natalie. Real kind of weird guy, but he doesn't, I don't like, he's kind of just, you kind of just think maybe he's, I don't know, some hick that lives down there. He doesn't get to talk to a lot of people, right? Maybe he doesn't go to school, right? He just breeds dogs. I think his inclusion at the end of episode 9 and the beginning of episode 10 is a net positive. And that sort of being the realization, or that the realization of Max Cady actually having a son that was unbeknownst to him because it was supposed to be Crystal's son, or Crystal claimed him as her son when it was really his dead wife's son, and thus Max Cady's son. I think that's a good twist that is fair enough to set up, right? I think there's enough of Anna digging around Crystal's life to sort of come to that conclusion, and obviously they get the birth certificate from Noah at the end. I think that was a positive for me. The irony is not lost on me of Max's situation, but that sort of leads into another sort of gripe I have with this show is that they really don't leave anything up to your imagination. They either tell you exactly what it is or what's going on at this point, or they tell you it doesn't matter. See the DNA test. Sure, your mind can wander. Oh, is she her kid? Is she his kid? But at the end of the day, open questions like that don't really matter, right? Natalie has chosen the Bowdens as her family. She doesn't really care if Max is her father anymore. It doesn't eat at her, um, the way that it used to. Just like she doesn't know, I guess, if Paul's her father. But she doesn't really care anymore. She's gonna go eat burgers with Zach and Anna and Tom, and they're gonna, I guess, be happily ever after, just constantly looking over their shoulders. Um, to continue on my positives for this finale, I like that we kind of got that campiness in the editing back. There's a shot with Max on the roof after the cops are leaving, which I think is hilarious because there's absolutely no fucking way that he would be able to stay up there when with 6 cops leaving. No one looks. I know it's a hurricane. No one's looking at the house as they're driving away. Why would he stand there? He can hear the cops leaving. Go to the other side. It's a sick shot. I'll give it that. And I'm glad it's there because I think it's entertaining. But and then the shot of him or the leading after the noise is on the roof, he jumps into the window that Zach opens up for literally no reason. Obviously, he hears the footsteps, but why would you open the window? It's a hurricane. It's a hurricane, and Max Katie's after your parents and you. Like, you know what I mean? I just why would you ever open that window? This is supposed to be the positive part of a positive section, but it just isn't. There's just not a lot that I like about this show. I'm glad. I think it's just some of the directing sort of midway through from episodes 5 to 8 around there. Just I didn't really agree with. I didn't like the pacing of a lot of it, and it does sort of return in this finale. I think the pacing is fine. I think the tension is good. I think the sort of mock courtroom scene where we get some answers. Finally, we get some answers to sort of the motivations behind Tom and especially Anna's actions. I think all three, Javier Bardem, this is the strongest Javier Bardem's been in a month. This is the strongest that Amy Adams, I think, has been the entire show. And Patrick Wilson maintains his decent, consistent consistency as Tom. The kids are fine. They've been fine the whole show. I think it's not, the resolution of the episode is not un unsatisfactory. It's a fine finale to a mid show. The biggest thing that I would change, I think, about Apple TV's Cape Fear is the length. I know that 10 episodes for a limited series is kind of standard, I guess. Maybe not standard, but a lot of limited series are that. That's a nice easy number, right? 10. I think the show probably could have been 6, maybe even less, right? There's a reason that Scorsese movie's only like 2 hours long, which again I haven't seen. But if you're a fan of that interpretation, I would stay away from this. I don't think it does anything. I can't imagine it does anything better than Martin Scorsese, although he did produce this entire show. I think it's just like I said, there's a whole month's worth of episodes that are pretty much just solely focused on them kind of slowly following leads about Max and the kids acting out because, they're sort of convinced that Max is their father. And those questions are either answered in an obvious way or not, which I don't think either are very interesting. And that's my biggest problem with this show. I've been culminating towards this. I just don't think it's very interesting. Javier Bardem starts strong and he loses me because he goes from this mysterious sort of will he won't he kind of character, right? You don't know his motivations, you can't tell, you can sense that there's something kind of off about him. You can sense that he's got some sort of malice in him, but he never does anything outright, right? But once it sort of is apparent that he has some disdain for the Bodens and that he's sort of out for revenge, he becomes this just comically over the top evil mega supervillain who is impossible to take seriously because he really isn't even that physically imposing. At the beginning, you kind of see him on top of stages and in front of microphones and next to regular people. But then, and I don't think this was intended because I think it's supposed to sort of come off like he let this happen as leverage, he gets his ass beat by Tom. I think episode 6 or 7, something like that. And you realize that Patrick Wilson is taller than Javier Bardem, and he's ripped. The final fight, Tom gets some licks, but he's already beaten him once. He's bigger than him. All right, bigger might not be. He might not be bigger, but this is not like Javier Bardem isn't like you know gonna solo these guys. There's 4 of them. Zach's almost as tall as him, and it's just not. I'll digress here. I'll do everyone a solid, and I'll stop whining about the same things. I'm gonna give Cape Fear a 4 out of 10. The editing really does a lot of the heavy lifting here. I think the openings are really strong. The theme, sort of theme, it's not really a theme song, but how the theme is sort of edited, I think, was probably one of my favorite parts of this. And I do think that there is a good show somewhere in here. I genuinely do think that there is sort of a way to watch this, maybe just episodes 1, 2, 3, 9, 10, where you kind of get sort of everything out of it. You could do completely without his daughter and without the questions of whether or not the Bowden's kids are his or not. I think the focus on those characters is so central and unnecessary that it weighs down the entire show. Thank you all so much for watching my review of Apple TV's Cape Fear. It's the first standalone video that I've done on this channel. Everything else has been the what I watched this week. So let me know if you liked the format, if you liked sort of the more focused episodes. And let me know in the comments whether or not you agree with me that this show maybe is a little bit underwhelming, leaves a little bit to be desired, or if you completely disagree and love the show. Or if you don't even think it's underwhelming, you just completely hated it, and it was, total trash. You don't like it, anything about it. Um, I will talk to you all in a couple of days with my What I Watched This Week series continuing on Sunday. And then maybe I'll do another, maybe I'll do more focus videos in the future. We'll see. Again, thanks for watching, and leave a like or sub if you like what you hear. And I will talk to you guys soon.